Well, hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Getting ready to record episode 120 of Mike in the Midwest. So let's get this set. And here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 120 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. You can find me on the social media at Be Our Guest Mike. And if we have not connected before, let's do that this week. I would love to talk to you over there, especially on Twitter. That's where I hang out quite frequently. But you could also catch me on Instagram. I post a lot of pictures there every morning. You'll know if I'm alive because I do post my either run or walk picture and let you know where I am with that. And sometimes you get some pictures from football games. Sometimes you get some pictures of fun meals here around St. Peters, Missouri. A lot of times you'll get a lot of Disney content when I'm down at the races or on vacation. So check that out at Be Our Guest Mike. Let's connect this week. Nothing would make me happier. But I hope that you are doing well, having a great fall season here in this week, right before Halloween. Can you believe it? Halloween is a mere 6 days away as we record this podcast. And it's an exciting time of the year. As I've mentioned here on the show, I really do enjoy Halloween myself. It's one of those holidays I think that's kind of fun because you don't have to get super wrapped up in it. You don't have to purchase gifts for everybody. You don't have to prepare a whole lot. You just got to make sure that you get to Walgreens or CVS or Target, get some candy to hand out, and be ready for the ghosts and goblins to come by your house. And if you have kids, it's perfect, right? Because your kids get pumped up. They got it by now. They've probably decided on what they're going to be. I don't know what the popular costumes are anymore because my youngest is now 14 going on 15. So I have no idea, but I remember back in the day how it was, oh man, I can't even remember. Paige was always sports characters. Like she was always a soccer player or, she always wanted to be, sports people. Mallory was a princess many times. She was that kind of girl. And she was Ray one year from the return of episode 7. And so, I don't know what the hot costumes are. So again, let me know for next week's show if you have kids, what were the costumes this year? And also because obviously the kids will come around by the time we do next Tuesday show. Speaking because Halloween's next Monday night, let me know in the comments here. What did you see? Like, what were the characters that came by your house? What was your most popular costume? And I'll do the same, and I'll report here on Mike in the Midwest next week because I can't wait to see the costumes. And this is the time of the year, though. This, right here, we're less than a week away. I start to watch the forecast, and I just hope for the kids and also for the parents. Let's be honest, that we get some decent weather. And right now in the Midwest, in St. Louis, I looked this morning. It looks like it's going to be clear in 65 next Monday. Now, a lot can change. We got 6 days, but that would be awesome Halloween weather. Probably mid upper 40s, 50, maybe about 50 degrees when it gets dark for trick or treating. Kids can kind of layer up with their costume on. Not bad. I don't know, though. You probably have stories like we do here in St. Louis of Halloweens where it has actually snowed and been just miserable. We've obviously had many Halloweens where it has rained, and we've had, very nice Halloweens. We've had actually Halloweens where it's pretty hot, pretty warm. Those are pretty nice. But just hoping the best for the kids and the families. What do you think? Again, this is the podcast. I love your feedback. We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. To me, that's the heart of this whole show. Mike in the Midwest it's a sneakily show that I share stories about growing up in the Midwest. But more importantly, I like to see how we're all connected, East Coast, West Coast, Canada, wherever we are. I like to hear your perspectives on things. What was it like in Wisconsin or Michigan or Arizona? I like that. So share what do you think about Halloween? Do you get as jazzed as I do? I think what it is, and I mentioned this on Monday's show, also, by the way, on the podcast this week. So Friday, just so you know, Friday coming up is going to be the Trip Report show for this week. And Monday is actually going to be the Friday show. We moved our Friday show to Halloween Day on Monday because it's a Halloween special. So we flip-flopped Friday and Monday's podcasts. So on Monday's show, I kind of talk about, I think, why I enjoy Halloween so much, even as an adult, is that when I was a kid, I did miss quite a few Halloweens, actually Halloween evenings. I don't know why it always happened on Halloween, but I was a kid who growing up had asthma very seriously. I had to go to the doctor twice a week, every week to get shots and to get for allergies and severe allergies and stuff like that. And this time of the year was always terrible for me because as soon as the leaves fell, and that actually happened today in St. Louis. Today we got just a ton of rain. We got 3 inches of rain, I think. It was super windy the last 2 days, especially today with the rain. All the leaves, it was beautiful. You've probably seen a few of my pictures on Instagram. I mean, the trees were just gorgeous here for the last week. I mean, just beautiful reds and oranges and yellows, gorgeous. I went out to walk Riley right before recording this show, and because it just stopped raining, and because of the wind, all the leaves are gone. All the leaves are gone. I mean, it is now looking almost like winter all of a sudden out in our neighborhood, and it's one of those things, all the leaves are now on the ground, they're all wet, and so what happens is these leaves will now get moldy as they sit on the pavement and get into the gutters and so forth. That stuff, I'm terribly allergic to mold, especially when I was a kid, and so this time of the year when the leaves would fall and they would get all moldy, I would just always get sick. And I just remember many, many times I would end up in the emergency room with breathing treatments and stuff like that. And many times it was on Halloween night, which as a kid, it was such a drag, right? Because you had your costume, you always talked to your friends about where you were going to go, what you were going to do. And I did miss probably 3 or 4 Halloweens, like right in the prime trick or treating age. So I'm kind of sad about that, but I'm still making up for it because I get a kick out of just sitting on the front porch, giving out the candy, seeing the kids come by, seeing their excitement, asking them about their costumes because they love to share. And, especially the real little ones that kind of don't know what's going on. They waddle up and they just kind of look at you. They don't know to say trick or treat. They don't know what's going on. And it's just, and the parents are so proud of their kids' costumes. I just love the whole deal because it's not a lot of pressure, and you get to meet your neighbors too. Because we're kind of still new to our neighborhood. We've lived here for about 3 years at this point, and you got to remember, we moved in 2019, in the summer of 2019, and then you had the COVID year of 2020 and 2021. So we're still kind of the whole flow of the community meetups and the communal events that you might have like Halloween and so forth haven't happened as often as they should have. So I'm hoping we get good weather. I'm hoping we get tons of trick-or-treaters, enough that we run out of candy and we just have a good time. And I hope the same is true for you. But how do you feel? Are you like me? Are you somebody that really enjoys Halloween and looks forward to sitting on the porch, giving out the candy? I'll tell you a couple stories here real quick. This isn't kind of what this was about, but I just like to get together with you for about 30 minutes a week. You guys are the patrons. I just kind of tell stories from my life. That's the whole point of this show. It's kind of random. It's really random. But and I think I might have told this on the podcast years and years ago. But like I say, I do like Halloween and I kind of get into it. And I think I did a show years ago, or I think actually last year, about Silo X when I was in it was either high school or I think it was in college. I worked at a professional haunted house and as a scare actor for about 3 weeks, right, leading up to Halloween, where you got paid cash every night that you worked. And that was a fun job. I'm going to look back because I'm not going to tell that story. If I already did the show, you can just go back and look at it. But I will say that years past, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, for a couple of years, not only would I hand out the candy at my house, but I would actually do my house up. Kind of. I mean, I didn't go all out. Now, people nowadays I mean, they're almost like Disney level, right? I mean, it's almost like the Osborne spectacle of dancing lights at, on your street. They have the music that sync to the LED lights. I didn't have any of that. But this was kind of before LED lights. My dad, you guys, I've talked about this many times. Growing up, my dad owned a mobile disc jockey company. So we always DJ'd wedding receptions, proms, any kind of parties. We were there. We were one of the bigger companies in St. Louis. So what we had for big parties like proms, homecomings, big high school dances, we had huge speakers, but we also had a rig it was a laser light show. So we had these laser lights, it was called the Beamer. We had fog machines, we had all kinds of stuff like that. So on Halloween, for a couple of years, I would open up my garage, and this is my old house that was really tiny. It had a little one-car garage, had a little bitty, teeny tiny covered porch that barely held a bench, but I covered it up, and so I put the fog machine coming out of the garage door, and I only had the garage door up just probably about a foot off the ground, just enough that the smoke could roll out of it and kind of billow out with like a laser light shooting out from under it. So it looked really cool. At least I thought it did. Probably everybody else didn't. And I sat on the front bench in front of my house, and I had a scarecrow sitting on the bench. So I took like an old flannel shirt and some old jeans and straw, and I built this scarecrow, and I had a mask that I got real cheap at like Spirit, there's a Halloween store, Walgreens or somewhere super cheap. And I made this scarecrow. Now, this was during the time where I lived in the subdivision where I taught 6th grade. All the kids knew where I lived because, I mean, I had students that lived on my street and the rest of the kids lived in the subdivision. So everybody knew where I lived. And so everybody was like, "Yeah, Mr. Rahman, we're going to your house tonight to trick or treat." And I'm like, "Cool." I'm like, "If you're in my class, you get a full size candy bar. Now, if you're not in my class, you get the regular candy. But for my class, my students, because we're all a family here, my 25, you swing by my house, you get a full size." And I was not kidding. I did go out and buy like 25 Kit Kats or something. I can't remember. So I did have those kind of off to the side. Well, here's the deal. They were expecting that I'd be, they thought they'd knock on the door, and Mr. Rahman would answer the door, looking like a teacher and hand them a Kit Kat. That's kind of how they thought the story would go. No, 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 no. This was Mr. Rahman's revenge. This was how Mr. Rahman was going to have some fun with them. Didn't tell them this. So I had the scarecrow sitting on the bench, kind of a foggy, laser lighty, greenish looking like haze over my front porch. So it was kind of really hard to see. So I had this random neighborhood kids coming by just getting candy. It was awesome. But the thing was, I dressed up in a second scarecrow costume. So I put on a flannel shirt, I put on jeans, and I put straw coming out of my sleeves, and I had on gloves and straw coming out of my pants, like legs. So it looks like I was a scarecrow, just like the scarecrow next to me. And I had a mask on I tried to match the scarecrow with just a different mask and a different flannel shirt, but I tried to make it look like two scarecrows sitting on the bench. And so I would just sit there, and of course, you'd have a lull between, people coming by. So I just sit on my bench, and then when the kids would come up on the front porch, I would if it was somebody that, like, just a little kid or, like, somebody I didn't know, I would be moving so that you could obviously tell that I was not, a scarecrow, so I didn't frighten them. But if I saw them, 'cause the thing was with 6th graders, they're so loud all the time. And I knew these kids, I knew their voices, right? Because it was already October 31st. I'd had these kids for 2 months and like nonstop talking in my class. So I knew them pretty well. So I'd hear him like, "Oh yeah, there's Mr. Rahman's house. We're gonna he said he'd have full-size candy bars. I bet he don't." And they'd be all talking, and usually they'd be in a pack, be 4 or 5 of them together. And so I'd hear him coming. I'm like, "Oh yeah, here it comes." So they would come walking up, and they'd be like, "Oh, look at the fog. Oh, look at the light. Look at it's green. What's up? Mr. Robbins' house looks like it's like abandoned." They'd all be talking, and I'd try not to laugh under my mask. And I'd sit there just next to the scarecrow, looking like a scarecrow with my hands, in the scarecrow pose next to the scarecrow. And I remember one of the kids. So here's the best part. His mom, this kid did not live in our district. Okay. So he lived in a totally another city. Like, he lived probably a half hour away, but he got to go to our school because his mom was an employee of the district. So if you worked for the district, your kid could go to any school in the district. So his mom worked at like the middle school. The middle school was in our parking lot. So she picked for her kid to go to our elementary school, and she picked for her kid to be in my class. So Anthony, I remember this. He gets dropped off in a car in front of my house. I see him get out of a car. Like, his mom drove him 30 minutes just to come to my house to get a candy bar. So she drops him off, and his mom was the sweetest lady. I loved her. She was a secretary at the middle school. We talked all the time. She's just awesome, salt of the earth, wonderful lady. So I see her pull up. She stops, pulls off to the side of the road, stops in front of my house, lets Anthony out of the car. And Anthony's one of my favorite students. Gets out of the car. Okay, so he's like, and he's kind of like a scaredy cat kid anyway. He gets out and he comes up to my house and he's kind of tentative and he's by himself. Okay, so I'm kind of getting the two stories mixed up. Okay, this is the Anthony story. So he comes up and he knocks on my door. Well, of course, nobody answers because I'm the only one there and I'm sitting on the bench, but he doesn't know that because he thinks it's just two scarecrows. Knocks. Nobody's there. And he's you could tell he's disappointed, right? Because and his mom was probably disappointed too because they had driven. I knew they lived like 30 minutes away. And apparently she had driven him all the way to my house just so he could get a full-size candy bar and come to Mr. Rallman's house. I told my kids, you got to come to my house tonight for trick or treating. Because I mean, I figured everybody lived in the subdivision. Who cares? I didn't think about Anthony living 30 minutes away, but he did. Anyway, so he knocks a second time, and I could tell he's disappointed. And so as he turns disappointedly to go back to the car, I jump up and I go, Anthony, are you looking for this? And I have like a candy bar, like a Kit Kat in my hand. This kid came off the ground. I am not kidding. Probably a foot. He jumped and he hurdled my bushes. Okay, now when he came in like up the path. When he was leaving, he did not care where he was leaving. He went over my bushes, and I had these hedges that were probably 18 inches tall, right over the hedges, ran across my yard because I jumped. I remember I'm 6'3", jumped up and ran out in the street. And here's the thing. I realize he's running into the street. He's my student. He is freaked out. And I see a car coming the other way. So now all of a sudden I freak out. So I'm like, Anthony, stop. And so, but I mean, I'm dressed up like a big mutant scarecrow with a mask on. So I'm running out there too, looking like I'm chasing this kid. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to get him to stop running so he does not get hit by a car. Fortunately, he ran to his mom's car, and his mom's car was on this side of the street, so he didn't cross traffic. Gave me a heart attack. Anthony had a heart attack because I gave him a heart attack when I jumped up like, "You want this?" with the Kit Kat. And I did that to like a bunch of groups of kids that night. But the Anthony story is just the one that I told my class the next day at school, and they laughed so hard. And Anthony was a good kid. He went right along with it. He laughed so hard. I still love that story because I got some of the other kids and they all got it right because they got too. But when I told the story about Anthony coming all that way and his disappointed look, like, oh man, Mr. Rollman's not even home. He totally, I got played. I came all this way. My mom drove me, and then you want this? Yeah, and he hurdled the bush and almost got hit by. And I was chasing him. Anthony, don't. It's one of my favorite Halloween stories. Even though I wasn't the kid, I was the giver. So long story that was way too long. You might want to do that on Monday. Have fun with that, but be careful. If you scare them, make sure there's no traffic coming down the street. So that's just a fun story that hopefully we share to laugh because that's a memory I have from Halloween. All right, let's get to some of the memories that we have from the feedback from last about elementary school parties. And John Luther chimed in here and he says, I can't say that I recall our public school having a ton of parties. Valentine's Day was of course a big thing, and the little bit of candy that came with it was always welcome. People sometimes would send in cupcakes for a birthday, but that was about it. If there was anything around Christmas or Easter, it was totally forgotten. Now, you talk of 70s Halloween costumes with the smocks. That brought me back. The first Halloween I remember was when I was 3 or 4. My parents had gotten me a Bozo the Clown costume. Now that you mentioned that, John, I was Bozo the Clown one year, and it was one of those smock costumes, I think they're called Ben Coopers, with the plastic mask and the smock. I think I had that one. Yes, because I've seen a picture of me in it, and it was scary. Okay, back to John. He said, I wanted nothing to do with it. They somehow managed to get me to put on the outfit, but the instance that the mask went on just led to a lot of tears. I only made it to a couple of houses that year. Here follows a picture of the costume. Definitely not me in the picture. Maybe it's my memory, but I feel like that it looks creepy to this day. And yes, the picture is creepy. And that costume, what were people thinking in the 70s? I mean, it's not like that costume is, I mean, it's nightmare fuel. That they put that on kids and they thought kids thought that was fun? I don't know. That costume was super scary, and maybe it was, like, ironic, but I don't think, like, think people did stuff to be ironic like people do in 2022 back in 1978. I don't know. But John, that's a great memory, and I totally forgot that I was Bozo the Clown one year with that same costume. So thank you for bringing back that memory for me. That means a lot to me, so I sure appreciate that. Thanks, John. Thank you for being a patron. I truly appreciate that. All right, more comments here. Let's get to the next one, which is coming up, and it is from Megan Green. Megan, thank you for being a patron. I appreciate it. She says, "Hey, Mike, it's been forever since I've had time to listen to the Patreon feed. I've been working two jobs, one at my son's elementary school as a reading and math intervention paraprofessional, plus freelancing my typical gig as a proofreader, copy editor, and basically just working around the clock." Well, first of all, Megan, thank you for doing that job as a paraprofessional in that elementary school. Not paid enough, and you guys do the Lord's work. So I appreciate you being in that school as a teacher. You guys help so very much. She says, "But I finally scored a contract job editing, and now I finally have my free time back. Hooray!" My husband and kids are pretty happy about that too. I'm sure that they're happy to have you back. What I remember about elementary school parties is my school would do a whole Halloween carnival every year, and it was my favorite part of Halloween. They would do crafts in the art room, games in the gym, spooky stories in the library, snacks in the cafeteria, a fortune teller in the tent in the hallway, and trick or treating classroom to classroom. It was in the evening, so the whole family could come and have a great time. And I have so many awesome memories of those parties. Okay, Megan, I'm stealing this idea for my wife's school. I'm going to tell her this is what they need to do next year. Exactly that. Copy, paste, email to my wife's principal. That is a fun community event right there because they're always looking for community connections. And this is it. I mean, that's it. That's awesome. She says, "These days, my kids get to wear their costumes to school, something I didn't get to do," she says. "And they do special activities throughout the day, including a spooky sprint where they all go outside and do a silly race around the soccer field." How cool is that to get to wear the costumes to school? Because I thought that was a thing way in the past. The only way we could do it with my sixth graders, like I said last week, was we had to dress up like a historical character. That's what we did at sixth grade. Fifth graders had to dress up as a biography character. Like they had to read the biography of a character, do the book report, and dress up as that person on Halloween. Megan wraps it up. "I don't remember really doing any Christmas parties when I was in school, but my boys' school, they do a whole school Polar Express party where everyone wears their pajamas to school. The teachers serve everyone hot chocolate and cookies, and they watch the Polar Express. It's really a fun time." That is awesome. I mean, that is a great, great thing. Megan, those are great memories and those are great ideas. And I hope if anybody out there is a PTA member or a teacher or on staff in your community, suggest these things. Those would be great for every kid and every teacher because I really think I know some teachers don't like to do these extra things, but to me, I think this is the stuff that makes the teaching profession fun. You know, these are the things that keep you young. You get to look forward to holidays. That's what makes the school year fun. You get to say, "Oh, we made it to Halloween. We get to have a party. We made it to Thanksgiving. We get to do some kind of a big Thanksgiving activity, like maybe a food drive for the community. Oh, we get to have a Christmas party before we leave for a couple of weeks for Christmas break. We get to have a Valentine's party." I love these ideas, Megan. So thank you for sharing those here on the Patreon feed. And congratulations on the job. Trisha also echoes congratulations on the new gig. And Trisha, finally, up in Wisconsin, has our final piece of feedback for today's show. "Last year, my daughter's school was doing modified holiday party experiences and didn't do any the year before. True confession, when they finally started up classroom parties again, we had a holiday trip planned for Disney World. She missed not only her Christmas party, but also her holiday concert. To make up for missing her concert, we found an area at the resort to use as a stage, and she performed the songs she had been practicing." Trisha, I love that. I think I remember the email that you sent to the show, and that is an awesome, awesome idea. Trisha, I appreciate you and hope things are going well for you and the family up in Wisconsin. All right, if you have any feedback from this week's show or any show, and I want to hear your feedback on all the trick or treaters. What was your favorite costume? What's your favorite story? Like mine with Anthony, do you get into giving out Halloween? Do you just give out Halloween candy by sitting in the living room and watching Monday Night Football? And as the doorbell rings, do you just get up and give out the candy? Do you do up your front yard with inflatables? Do what do you do? Like, give me some feedback as to how did Halloween go, or how do you do Halloween as the candy giver, or do you go out within your neighborhood with your family, your kids? In my case, it would be my nephew. He's 5. How do you do Halloween? Give us some stories to share for next week's show, because I love them. So again, feedback is at patreon.com/be our guest podcast. I'll be waiting here anxiously to share on next Tuesday's show. All right, a few quick notes here that I thought I would share to wrap up today's show. Small things that make me happy. Small things that make me happy. Because, of course, you may have heard in the news here in St. Louis yesterday, as we're recording this podcast, we did have a school shooting here about 20 miles from where we live. It's down in South St. Louis. It's in the actual city of St. Louis, just south of like where you would see the arch, at a school that's called the School for the Visually. It's a school for like performing arts. It's a special kind of like not STEM school, but it's I forget the term for it, but it's a special high school. And unfortunately, a shooter got into the school, and it seemed like, from what we're hearing, everything was done correctly at the school. Doors were locked. They had followed all their procedures, which, being somebody who worked in education, we practice those things over and over. But it seems like that the shooter must have gotten in through a window. It was very nice out yesterday, so maybe a teacher had a window open. These buildings where this happened, very old, very old. And that may be how the shooter got access to the building. And unfortunately, a student was a sophomore was killed, and a PE teacher was killed. And that's just, it's tragic. And other students were sent to the hospital and harmed. And being somebody who spent many, many years in education, my wife is currently, right now as I'm recording this, at school, is in her 25th year of elementary school teaching. And she's staying after tonight for parent teacher conferences. Won't be home tonight till 7:30, and same for tomorrow night. Won't be home till 7:30, because she's meeting with her parents, and with every student, telling them how they're doing, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses. She knows these kids probably as well as the parents do, since August. These teachers put in countless hours and undying devotion to their students, and to see stuff like this, it's tragic. I mean, Newtown brought me to my knees when it happened. I still remember it, watching the news in when I was teaching gifted education. I turned on the news at the end of the school day, because our students left school at about 2:30. We loaded them up on the buses because they would go back to their home schools for dismissal back home. And I watched the news, and that just buckled me. And my very first year of teaching was when I taught second grade. I graduated with my teaching certificate in January, and we graduated on a Sunday, and I walked into a classroom with a full-time teaching position on a Monday. 24 hours later, I had a classroom, and I taught ever since. In that very first year, as I was finishing that up, that spring is when Columbine happened in Colorado. And that just tore me up. And these things happened throughout my teaching career. And when you are sitting there watching this news come in, and you're sitting in a classroom, you are sitting at your teacher desk, and you're overlooking the mess of your classroom, papers strewn everywhere, and glue sticks on the floor, scissors where they're not supposed to be, a random lunchbox that some kid didn't take home that they should have. And there's probably, crust from their sandwich still in that lunchbox. That you think that's the worst of everything, and it's not. That's the chaos in the moment. But when you see those kind of things, it's tragic, and it really does hurt. It hurts every time. And when it doesn't hurt, that's going to be a problem. But when these things happen, I try to look and try to find things that'll cheer you up, small things. So I'm going to bring you a few small things that might make you happy. That's the only way I know how to do it. And the podcast really does help, because we get to talk about positive stuff, the good stuff, the memories, the strategies to make new memories, to get to have fun at places like Walt Disney World or on cruises, but more importantly, to make connections with people like you. You guys are extended family for me. You guys are special. You guys, you allow me to live out my dream by supporting us here on Patreon, and I can't thank you enough for that. But more importantly, we have a bond, and I love that. But here's a couple of things that I wanted to share with you that I've been doing lately that have kind of made me happy, and they're so stupid because they're so simple. So I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago with the if you're an iPhone user, we got this iOS 16 update to the operating system. So you need to update to that. It keeps your phone secure, but it also makes your home screen a lot more fun. So I think I told you about how you can now make your home screen kind of rotating pictures, right? So all you got to do is once you update to iOS 16, you just long press on the home screen and you can customize it. So when you do that, you can pick, to go with your featured photos, and it'll rotate every hour, every time you click it, every day, however long through your featured photos, and you can actually pick the people you want. So I have Mallory, Paige, Pam, and it rotates through them, and it also has places I've traveled to, nature pictures I've taken, so forth, and it's just great to see that. Every hour I get a new picture, and it makes me happy because sometimes it'll show a picture from a Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party from 12 years ago, an epic October thing we did with the podcast, or a cruise picture that I took of the sunset on the horizon, or a picture of the trees out by our lake, or a picture of Riley. I love that. It makes me happy. Small stuff like that. But on top of that, so that's your home screen. That's like the picture that you see when you just look at your phone right now. But the other screen that you have on your phone is called the wallpaper, right? It's the background picture behind your apps. Now, a lot of times you might put a picture of your family there, but you don't really usually see that because it's covered with your apps. So what I have done, excuse me, and you guys know that I love retro stuff. I went in and I typed in onto Google, I typed in retro Halloween iPhone wallpaper. And when you do that, you get some very cool looking, like 60s, 70s, 80s aesthetic pictures that you can save right there by just, holding them down, saving them to your photos, and you can make those your wallpaper. So, what I've done, I found some cool pictures of like pumpkins that kind of look like something that would have been hung up in an elementary school in like the 1980s. And I have that as my wallpaper, which it's a small thing, but I try to think about it. Like, we don't put a whole lot of decorations up in our house, and I don't have a classroom to decorate anymore. I used to decorate my classroom. Um, there's just there's a lot of things where you decorate, but we just don't have a lot of decorations. And what do we see all the time? We see our phones. And so with my wallpaper now on my phone, I see this cool decoration. I saved about 5 or 6 of them, and I rotate those so you can change that. So I have a cool Halloween decoration hanging on my iPhone right now. So that's something that makes me really excited. Another thing that gets me really excited this time of year, and this is one of the things I had to have done before right now, is when you're outside, when you take the dog for a walk, or when you go for a walk, or when you're out there with your kids, take the opportunity to take pictures of the trees as the fall colors are there. Because I'm telling you what, tomorrow, those colors might be gone. Those trees could be bare. A storm comes through, the rain moves in, and all of a sudden, you don't have those opportunities to get those beautiful, gorgeous fall colors, because yesterday we had them, today gone because the rain moved through. Luckily, though, I have captured over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've captured some amazing, beautiful pictures of trees in our neighborhood that I've seen. And then, like I said, they'll pop back up on my home screen for my phone, and it makes me happy when I see those. I get super happy. So make sure that you take, as many pictures as you can. And like I've always said, back your phone up to Google Photos, and you'll have those pictures there stored on the cloud that you can refer back to. And Google Photos will do cool stuff with your pictures. It might pop them. It might take the tree, the colorful tree, and keep that colored and make the background black and white. It'll do stuff like that through AI, which you won't have to do anything for. And it'll just bring you a little bit of joy when you see that on maybe a day where you're getting terrible news on a day like yesterday. So, just a couple of things I wanted to throw in there that you could do with your phone. You could do this on Android devices as well. I know those options are out there as well. One other thing I wanted to think that you could do this time of year, and especially as we move into the holiday season, once we get, I don't know how you feel about celebrating Christmas before Thanksgiving. Some people can do that, some people can't. I'm one that tries to wait until Thanksgiving, but it's getting harder and harder because every night before bed I have a Little Debbie snack cake. And so this time of year I've been having the Little Debbie fall cakes. They're like a little orange and brown little sprinkles on them, which are great. They again, it's a little way to celebrate this time of the year. It makes me happy to celebrate. I'm not celebrating, but I'm having a fall cake before bed every night, and I like it. It's fall. It makes me happy. Pam goes to the grocery store on Sunday, and she comes home and tells me, "Mike, they don't have any more of the fall cakes anymore, the Little Debbie fall cakes." I'm like, "What? It's not even Halloween." She goes, "Well, they did have something else." I'm like, "What did they have?" They have the Christmas trees. And I love the Little Debbie Christmas trees. I love those. Those make me so happy at Christmas. However, it's not even Halloween yet. I don't even know. Like, we have a box of them now in our pantry, and I haven't opened it yet because I don't know how I feel about that. She goes, "I also bought you just the zebra cakes, which are kind of the year-round cakes." So I've been eating those because I don't know if I can break into the Christmas trees yet, because will it spoil my enjoyment of the Christmas trees when it gets to be December? Because that's a special thing. I only do around Christmas. I'm totally messed up with that because they're sitting in the pantry, but I haven't opened them yet because it's way too soon to do Christmas. But one other thing I was thinking that you can do. So until Halloween, for your wake up sound, when your alarm goes off on your phone, you can set your wake up sound to just whatever default sound, or you can use a song. So maybe set your wake up sound to like the Tower of Terror music, do 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 do, or say Michael Jackson's Thriller, did you know, something like that. Get into the spirit, you know. And of course, one last thing you have to do, you have got to do it, and this is a requirement. I made my students do this when I was a sixth grade teacher. You have to watch the Charlie Brown. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. You have to watch it this year. You have to watch it on Apple TV, but it is absolutely free. You just got to watch it through the Apple TV app. It's free October 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st. And if you have Apple TV, you can watch it anytime. But you got to watch that, and you got to watch Thanksgiving at Thanksgiving and Christmas at Christmas. That's one of my requirements to get you in the mood. All right, so just a few things to cheer you up this holiday season, this Halloween season, but anytime, because I think small things can turn a not so good day into a better day. Maybe not the best day, but a better day. And a better day and a great day is absolutely what I want for each and every one of you. I want you to know that I appreciate you, and I hope that we share some laughs on the big show. I hope that we share some memories on the big show, and I hope that we bring back some good times on this little bitty show that we have together. So until we get back together again next Thursday, or sorry, next Tuesday, what am I thinking? You guys have a very fun and safe Halloween. Collect those stories. Drop by the site here, patreon.com/Be Our Guest Podcast. I want to see tons of feedback for next week, and let's have a great one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and boo to you. All righty. I will see y'all later.